Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer and I talk to ghosts. In this podcast, I'll not only share the best true ghost stories I have collected, but will also describe ghostly encounters that I've experienced during my everyday life and through my journey into spiritual mediumship. I've been surrounded by hauntings my entire life, and initially I didn't see or quite understand that perhaps there was a pattern to that or even a reason, until one day I decided to start talking back. Now I want to share my journey with you, and I promise you as we kick off this first episode that will happen. But first I want to share a true ghost story with you. It's one of my favorites that I discovered along in my search for some good goosebumps. So sit back, dear listener. You are a welcome spirit here. I hope you enjoy this story as much as I do, and it starts now. A few years ago, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Melbourne, Australia. The apartment block had been built in the 1930s, and this was my first time living on my own. After living there a few months, I came home from work and went into the bathroom. I saw something strange. A wooden board, which had covered the hole in the ceiling that led to the small attic space, laid fractured in two pieces on the ground. I examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, not easily breakable. I thought perhaps the landlord had sent someone to work in the attic, but this didn't calm my fear. Someone was up there for sure, I thought. I emailed pictures to the landlord, asking if anyone had been there, with an undertone of annoyance since she hadn't warned me. Her reply read, "Please call me as soon as you're able to." I called and she explained that her last two tenants had said the same thing had happened. She promised to replace the board, and she did. A month later, I woke up one night around 4 a.m. My body was covered in goosebumps. Everything was silent, but then I heard a dragging sound coming from above my bed. It was as if someone was pulling a sack of potatoes. I froze, convinced someone was up there. There was no way an animal could have been making that sound. After 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to turn on the light, armed myself with a cricket bat, and walked into the bathroom. That's when I saw the new board covering the hole was broken in two, again. I felt sick. The dragging sound had stopped, but I heard something else. Whispering. The sound was clear and coming from the attic. It sounded like children's voices, and I could hear one sentence repeated over and over. "It's your turn. It's your turn. It's your turn." I switched on every light in the apartment to make things feel normal. It was 5 a.m. and dark outside. I watched TV trying to unwind. Then, a fuse blew. My pet budgie, Dexter, who I kept in the kitchen, usually never made a sound at night, but he started squawking like he was being attacked. He screamed. I grabbed my keys, ran out, sat in my car, and waited there until the sun came up. I just needed to get out. When I saw people walking their dogs, this comforted me enough to go back in. The front door was open, but I figured I might have forgotten to close it when I ran out. I went in the kitchen immediately to check on Dexter, but he wasn't in his cage. I felt sick. All my windows were closed, so I looked everywhere inside. When I walked into the bathroom, I heard splashing. Dexter, my poor bird, was struggling in the water of the toilet. I took him out, comforted him, and dried him. I was so confused. At 8 a.m., I called the landlord and I gave her a summary of the night. There was a pause on the line, and then she said, "Oh, wow, you heard the whispering too." I stayed in that apartment for another 18 months. I heard the whispering on a few occasions, and twice the board covering the hole in the ceiling moved. Although I live elsewhere now, the landlord recently called. She said that her new tenants had begged to speak to me about some of the stuff that's been going on there. But I just can't. I can't go back there. Are you enjoying your ghostly visit? If so, please follow, like, comment, and share. The ghosts may be talkative, but they are lousy at marketing, so every click helps. Tell your friends, and please leave a kind review so that others might join us. The spirits, and I thank you. I love a good spooky ghost story, and I have always found the subject of ghosts fascinating. It's chilling, it's exciting, and it absolutely makes you see that there is so much more to this world than what we take at face value. I just really love a good, scary ghost story. Now, do I find all ghosts scary? Absolutely not. I mean, it's kind of like people in real life. We have good people and we have bad people. So I believe that there are good spirits and there are bad spirits too. But it's never scary for me to talk to spirits during a medium session, no matter how much the candles flicker or if there's a sharp chill that settles in. And those things do happen a lot. But it doesn't scare me because I've set the stage for this. I've created the space for it. I'm calling the spirits close to me for a session. So I'm welcoming it and I'm expecting it. Now that's entirely different than if suddenly there's random knocking noises or disembodied voices while I'm just trying to make a grocery list. That can be pretty startling. But the solution to that is now I know to set office hours. And that really has helped with the unscheduled guests showing up in my life. Now, before we part ways tonight and you wander off into the moonlight and shadows, I wanted to share one of my own personal ghostly encounters. And I think it's only fitting, since this is the first episode, that I share a story of mine that includes several firsts, including the first time I ever saw a ghost. Are you ready? Here we go. So this happened to me when I was on a family vacation as a little girl with my family. We went to Florida and we went to Disney World. I was very young. I was under the age of 3, so I was probably 2.5. And I know this because it was only my older sister and me. My younger sister hadn't been born yet. And we had an amazing trip at Disney World. I remember a lot of the rides, but there was one ride in particular that I got a little bit more than I bargained for. We were on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And yeah, the ride was a little scary for a 2-year-old. Pirates, cannon blasts, water sprays, but I was also having fun. Well, on one particular part of the ride, we were approaching a platform to the side, and I noticed a man standing there, and he didn't fit in with the rest of the animated characters on the ride. He looked fairly normal. He was in shadow, and he had a eerie glow to him. And what really scared me was he was just standing there, not moving, and his eyes locked on me. And our boat on the ride slowly started getting closer to him. And as we approached him, he moved closer to the edge of the platform, like he was going to perhaps get in our boat with us. And at that point, I just had the worst feeling. I didn't want this to be going on. I started screaming, as a 2-year-old should. And sure enough, when we started to pass him, he jumped into the boat with us, and no one else was reacting. And I remember scrambling away from him, going into the back bench where my mom was, and just being hysterical, hiding in her arms. And of course, they thought it was just the ride that was scaring me. And I tried to communicate that, no, he's going to get me. He's in the boat with us. He's in the boat with us. But again, they just weren't making the connection. They didn't see him. Fortunately, we were close to the end of the ride. And when we pulled up to disembark from our boat, I looked up and he was no longer there. Now, I know what you may be thinking. There are a lot of rides at Disney World that can be scary to kids, and perhaps I misinterpreted it. Haunted Mansion is a great example of that, but I also remember being on that ride, and I even remember the ghostly phantoms at the end, where they show you in the mirror that there's a ghost riding with you, and all of the holographic tricks and all the special effects. I remember the other rides as well, the evil witch in Snow White and all the creepy animatronic dolls in It's a Small World. And it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. It was a very distinct experience in Pirates of the Caribbean with a character that did not fit in with the rest of the ride, and he actually got into the boat with us. He was translucent and kind of glowing, and then when we arrived at the end of the ride, thankfully he wasn't with us anymore. Now, I also mentioned that this was my first ghost encounter. The other first that I'm sharing with this story is, this is actually my earliest memory. This is my first memory, and it didn't even occur to me until maybe even this year that there might be some kind of significance that my very first memory in the world is of a ghost, of a ghostly encounter. I don't know if anyone has ever shared their first memory and have it be a ghost and have it involve a ghost. So stepping back and looking at the bigger picture of things, I wonder if there is some significance to that or not. Is there a pattern in my life that has led me to where I am today, what I've experienced, being drawn to mediumship, and the things that I have experienced as a medium? I find it really fascinating, just as I find the subject of ghosts incredibly fascinating. I'm very much looking forward to sharing more found ghost stories with you, as well as sharing more of my own experiences with ghosts and details of what it's like to be a medium and things that I've experienced talking to spirits. And so, lovely listener, we've reached the end of this first episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I really hope you've enjoyed these stories that I've shared with you this evening, and wherever you wander off to in this life or the next, just remember, come back and visit me. I hope you have a lovely evening. Good night.